What a marathon 24, 25 hours. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. Let's talk about Senator Booker, Justice-elect Susan Crawford. Let's talk about our democracy and money and a few other things. So Cory Booker filibustered and gave a speech for 25 hours. And I listened to his speech for 12 odd hours. And let me tell you that I've never listened to somebody's speech for more than 2 hours. So I was listening to everything he's saying because everything he was saying were the cries of Americans, were the pleas of Americans. He was explaining the Social Security program. He was explaining what dismantling of education would do. He was talking about the harm that tariffs would bring, where we are as a country, where we are as a democracy, where we are as a society, and how big Social Security is for so many Americans. And we saw Cory Booker with Senator Chris Murphy's help, and then later on during the latter hours by many other senators who asked him questions and he answered, broke the record of the longest filibuster in U.S. history. And what Cory Booker said, and Strom Thurmond held that record for a filibuster speech of about 24 hours. That was about segregation because he was pro-segregation. So Cory Booker said this: Strom Thurmond's record always kind of just really irked me. That the longest speech in our great Senate floor was from someone who was trying to stop people like me from being in the Senate. So to surpass that became more important to me. And that's a personal goal, and that's when I was listening to him for all those hours, I was in my back of my mind thinking, please, 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 please break that record. And, Cory Booker did us a service by enshrining into history the longest speech on the Senate floor being that of expanding American progress and expanding our government to bring in immigrants to be able to provide all persons with equality. And he did us a service by standing up and talking about what the American people really care about. He told a group of people that he didn't have to go to the restroom for over 25 hours because he hadn't eaten since Friday and stopped drinking water Sunday. He said he intentionally dehydrated himself. So, he was dedicated to this speech that he gave. And the speech that he gave really is important. So, I can't ever ask for anybody to devote 25 hours of your time to listen to what he had to say, but a lot of what he had to say, Americans need to hear. And so if you can double up the speed on YouTube of one of his live streams and just have it playing while you're doing your daily chores, you should do that. Then today we got the news that in the elections in Florida, while Republicans won, they won by much smaller margins than Donald Trump had won those red districts. So that was kind of an indication of what the populace is. But then came Susan Crawford's win in Wisconsin. Justice-elect of the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, that will have a huge impact on election integrity in the coming 10 years, the coming 6 years, and could impact how Wisconsin politics works for another decade to come. And she said, Wisconsin stood up and said that justice does not have a price. Our courts are not for sale. Elon Musk spent $26 million on this one state Supreme Court race. He put all his weight on the Trump-endorsed candidate, Brad Schmill or something, and they lost. So that is a huge message from Wisconsin saying that, no, you cannot buy us. Our democracy is not for sale. Justice-elect Crawford said that she couldn't imagine that she would be going up against the richest person in the world, and they did, and she won. And that is the power of people. That is the power of the vote. And we have to find ways to keep the momentum up from this election of Justice-elect Crawford to Cory Booker's 25-plus hour speech about what Americans need and demand from our government. We should remember these and learn from these, because we have to keep this momentum going until 2026, then 2028, and then every single election. Every single election. We can't let up anymore. There's been a lot of regression that has happened in the last 10 years. We have gone back on a lot of things, whether it be bodily autonomy and a woman's right to choose, or deference to regulatory agencies, to now we are seeing a complete dismantling of our state, of our government. A total hatchet job that Elon Musk is headed, and now Wisconsin is replying back to Elon Musk saying, no, your money is no good here. And I hope that message keeps on. So there was another story on at the New York Times, by the New York Times, that talked about how the Pentagon this week ordered the elimination of lower physical fitness standards for women in combat units, a move that is likely to hinder the recruitment and retention of women in particularly dangerous military jobs. Well, this kind of echoes what Pete Hegseth always said, that women were not appropriate for certain combat positions. This is discrimination on the basis of sex, violation of the Fifth Amendment, and, it violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Fifth Amendment. And what I find really interesting and hypocritical is that if DOJ wants to be sex neutral, then why are they banning transgender Americans from serving? This ban won't stand because that too is discrimination on the basis of sex and violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Fifth Amendment. But still, sex neutral should mean including trans people as well, right? So if they can get by doing the combat requirements that you're putting for everybody now, applies to everybody equally. You can't have it both ways. And we keep seeing That's exactly what this administration wants to do. A few more things. Just a few more things, quick things, and then that'll be the end of today's talk. Apparently, Facebook is starting to take down historian Heather Cox Richardson's posts from Facebook. I don't know why that is. It's outrageous. It's a violation of free speech, and I know that doesn't matter in Facebook because it's a private space. But still, for people to suppress speech is, going the extra mile. I think it's outrageous. I think it's a policy that Facebook will come to regret because they will lose a lot of people who are there and who trust experts like Heather Cox Richardson. There really aren't that many scholars in our country who spend this much time informing Americans about what is happening around the country. And I think it is a disservice to the American people to take down her posts. Next thing, on the last word, House Leader Jeffries said that Wisconsin voters rejected Trump, Musk, and a rapidly deteriorating GOP brand. And don't get ahead of ourselves here. I want to be very clear about that. The message from the Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice election was that we don't like Elon Musk. We still don't know if the GOP brand, which is now the MAGA brand, is rapidly deteriorating or not. Because while they may be deteriorating somewhat, they still held those very heavy Republican seats. So there still is a hardcore Republican base. But the battleground districts is where the game is going to be, as it always is. But there will be more battleground districts that lean red that are going to be in jeopardy in 2026. That is what we get from this election result. We can't attenuate that to the conclusion that there's a rapidly deteriorating GOP brand, because if it was rapidly deteriorating, then we would have at least picked up one of those Florida races. But we didn't. They're deteriorating, yes. They're imploding, yes. But I won't give myself the comfort of saying, oh, they're rapidly deteriorating, so, we don't need to keep up the pressure. No, we need to keep up the pressure. That's why they're rapidly deteriorating, because despite their bullhorns on Truth Social and X and Fox and all the other, outlets from Joe Rogan to Charlie Kirk, they all are on the topics that really change people's minds and young people listen to and hear. We have to be able to keep that pressure up and grow and push and compete with the GOP in these spaces of independent media by lifting up new voices, by giving people a chance, regular engaged citizens a chance to have their voices heard, to lift up more left wing, if you would call it. I just call it speaking truth. And if we keep this up, then we will have a rapidly deteriorating GOP brand, because it's not a vacuum. We don't work in a place where the GOP can just rapidly deteriorate automatically. It has to be pointed out. It has to be fought for. With due respect, Hakeem Jeffries. The last bit of news that I got right before getting here, Associated Press reports that a federal judge in California ordered the Trump administration to temporarily restore legal aid to tens of thousands of migrant children who are in the United States without a parent or guardian. Well, see, we weren't aware that Donald Trump's administration had withheld legal aid from these kids to begin with. We didn't know that there were children, migrant children in the United States who needed legal help to be able to plead their cases in courts, were not being provided the legal aid that they themselves could not afford, and that our government was providing them, but isn't now. And obviously Donald Trump will try to appeal this, move this up, appeal by the migrant children and all of that. And we're going to have to see how that hits SCOTUS and what the Supreme Court says about these migrant children who are here without a parent or guardian. So they are de facto wards of the state. They have to be taken care of. They have to be processed into our system, into our into our foster care system, and into our social security system. And if they are children without anybody, just children all alone, on American soil, they are afforded the rights that are afforded to all Americans. The children. I'm not talking about those children getting protected status and then their families trying to come through. That's a different sort of topic and scenario that GOP and MAGA wants to talk about. And we'll probably hear about those arguments. But the point now is that these kids need the legal help to be able to be safe and healthy and not be in detention centers supervised like herds of cattle. They are human beings. With that said, thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe. I see that there's a slower traffic now onto my channel. There's really nothing I can do about that. You're welcome here. You're welcome to all of the information that I put out. I'm doing this because I think I have a duty to my country to talk about what I'm seeing happening and inform as many people as I can. And that's what I do. With that said, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.